Welcome everybody, my name is Mittens and I'm here today to show you how to make an applique belt favor. Here we have a pocketed belt favor that fits on most types of belts, so if you are ready, let's begin. Alrighty, so for this project you are going to need a handful of items. Some are more necessary than others, but will make your life easier. First, of course, we have a sewing machine, which you do need, along with an iron. This is essential because we are going to be fusing our star fabric onto our belt favor. Scissors and rotary cutter. The rotary cutter is not necessary, but will make your life easier. Additionally, we have some stabilizer. Next to that, I cut out a star that we were going to use for our pattern, some fusible webbing, and a pencil. This kind of webbing you can actually draw on the papery side, which will make, again, our lives a lot easier. 2 different colors of fabric and your thread. Lay out the fabric that you want to use. This piece I have here is about 42 inches long, usually a fairly standard length that you would get for a bolt of fabric. I'm folding over about 7 inches, so 14 inches total, and that's about as wide as I want my belt favor to be. I'm also folding up to see how deep I want my pocket to be, and then I'm folding the top over to see how long I want the total belt favor to be. I'm noticing that here it's too long. It's like way too wide for the pocket that's going to slide onto the belt, so I'm shortening that a little bit. And I find I have about 8 inches of extra fabric, so we're gonna cut that off. Now that we've measured everything out, let's cut it. Again, you can use a normal pair of scissors. I'm gonna be using a rotary cutter for this just because it does make things go a lot faster. You get really smooth, clean lines. I'll end up having to trim a little extra after that just because my rotary cutter is chipped. I should definitely replace the blade. But I'm just going to fold things over to make it go a little bit faster. Here I'm just unfolding what I cut and rearranging the fabric again like I wanted the final product to be. Making my pocket, I'm using about a hand's length for the sleeve that is going to go on the actual belt, and I notice how much extra I need to cut off, give myself a little snip, and then use the rotary cutter to cut that last piece off. Alright, we are ready to start appliquing. To applique, we have, I've cut out a star that I'm going to be using for the applique. I also have this fusible webbing that has a papery back. The nice thing about that is I can trace whatever designs I want on this paper, and then after I iron it onto the fabric, I can cut it out to be the exact same shape. So here I'm just tracing the star that I've cut out again on paper onto the papery side of the fusible webbing, and then we're going to iron that onto our yellow fabric. So we will have a yellow star on the blue fabric. My ironing board is set up and I have my iron hot and ready to go. Make sure you're not using any steam when you're doing this next step. We are going to be ironing the fusible webbing directly onto our yellow fabric, making sure that that rough side is touching the fabric and the papery side that we just traced on is up. I'm only going to iron for about 8 to 10 seconds, and then it will be completely adhered to the fabric. Now that it's cooled down a little bit, we're going to cut the star shape out. Because we fused that paper to the fabric, everything should stick together, and as you cut, you're going to end up with really clean edges. It's going to make your design look really nice. To adhere your star onto your belt favor, you're actually going to want to peel the paper backing off of your star. Because you ironed it, the sticky part will remain on your star. You're going to put that sticky side down onto your belt favor and then iron the two together. Let's get stitching. So now that we have everything set up on our belt favor, we need to get our machine ready with a satin stitch. To do this, you're going to want to try to set your machine to a zigzag stitch. I know all machines are a little different. With mine, it's just a click of a button. Here I am adjusting my stitch settings to a 2 and a 3. The 2 is going to decrease the amount of space between each zigzag, and then the 3 is the actual width of the zigzag band. I have a tearaway stabilizer, super convenient, and I'm going to put it underneath a scrap piece of fabric and just test out this stitch. The nice thing about a tearaway stabilizer is it gives you that stability while you're stitching. It prevents the fabric from bunching, and afterwards, when you're all done, you can just rip it right off and you don't leave behind any bulky materials. Let's get started on the actual star piece. So I'm just putting the stabilizer on the very back of the star. I'm going to make sure that I'm starting not at the very tip of the star, but actually somewhere in the middle, because we're going to want to overlap our zigzag stitch, that satin stitch, when we get all the way around the star back to the beginning, and that will lock in your stitches so it won't unravel. I'm slowly stitching along the edge of the star, making sure that I keep my lines as straight as possible. When I get to a corner or point on my star, I will stop sewing, pick up the foot slightly so I can turn my fabric, and then continue stitching as close to where I was before. I'm making sure to go slowly so that my zigzag stitch remains as uniform as possible. And for this one, I'm using a red thread for the first half, and then I will switch to a yellow thread. As you can see on my finished project, I switched from the red to a yellow thread about halfway through. I did this to show that the yellow thread matching the fabric is going to blend in a lot better and overall usually give you a better finished project. Using a red thread for contrast is definitely good to give a pop of color. Here you can see the yellow thread goes over part of the red thread, and what that's going to do is it's going to lock in what I started stitching so that nothing will unravel. I'm just going to trim these threads off on the back and then tear away the stabilizer. Again, because it's a nice paper stabilizer, it tears away really easily. I've got my fabric laid out with the star on top. I'm then going to fold it in half, and we're going to stitch along the edge and essentially make like a sock or a tube. So we're going to stitch all the way across the bottom and up the side, but we're going to leave the top open. To keep my lines consistent, I'm going to line up the edge of my fabric with the edge of my sewing foot. Next, I'm going to start by back stitching, and this will help lock in my stitches as well. So just pressing this button, I don't need to use my foot for this portion, and it's just going to stitch backwards. Then I'm going to stitch forwards, going all the way to the corner, and then turning my fabric and going straight up. Now that I have a long tube with this opening, I'm going to turn the entire thing inside out. Here I'm just fixing the corners to make sure that they also look nice and pointy, and removing any threads that might have gotten loose. Once everything is turned inside out, you just want to lay it down and give it a quick iron to flatten everything out and make it a little easier to sew. We're also going to take that open edge that we didn't stitch down, and we're going to turn it in and iron that flat as well. Next, flip your fabric over and fold the bottom up and the top down. This will recreate the final look that we want our belt favor to have. You can see there is a space for where your belt will go. And we're just going to iron these two sides to give it a crease, and that will help us later when we are making our final stitches. Here's that opening that we folded and ironed over, and now I'm just going to line it up with my sewing foot and stitch across. I'm back stitching first again to lock in those stitches, and then I'm just going to go straight across, and that will completely close up our belt favor. Remember that crease we made before? We're going to use that to fold over, and this is where our pocket is going to be. We're going to start stitching at the corner and go all the way around. We've stitched all the way around our belt favor, and now we have this lovely pocket. The final step is to fold over the top, and we're going to stitch across, making sure that we are above that pocket we just made, and this section will be where we slide our belt favor on our belt. With this final stitch in place, we are completely done with our belt favor. The only thing left to do is trim a few threads. We have the space where the belt will go, and then the pocket right beneath that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was fairly easy to understand, and I hope that you were able to get some practice both with applique and also making a belt favor. Have a wonderful day and happy crafting!